Hey guys, so this video is on the third level of defense. Our learning intention is to understand the humoral and cellular immune response and how they're caused and what their purpose is. So we're talking about the third level of defense in the immune system, and it's a highly specific process involving cells known as lymphocytes, and they're our B cells and T cells. The reason why they're called B cells is because they mature in the bone marrow, whereas T cells, they mature in the thymus. That's why they're called T cells and B cells. So we're going to divide our third level into two distinct pathways. We've got the humoral pathway and the cell-mediated pathway. As you can see in this diagram, it's quite complex. There's a lot of steps involved, but we're going to break it down into the humoral and cell-mediated and discuss each pathway. So this all happens after the process of antigen presentation. We know last video that we talked about antigens being presented to T helper cells using MHC2. So this is sort of the next step after that. You can see in the diagram, you can imagine our macrophages engulfed. It's presented to a T helper cell using MHC2, okay? That helper cell then activates the rest of the pathways with cytokines. And we'll start off with the humoral response, okay? So the humoral response is when a T helper cell, you can see here, is gonna activate a B lymphocyte. Now this usually happens if it's been presented with an extracellular pathogen, something like a bacteria, let's say, okay? The B cell then differentiates, which means becomes different varieties of either B plasma cells or B memory cells. And the B plasma cells, they're the ones that make those antibodies that we release into the bloodstream. And these memory cells lay dormant for future infection. So they sort of remember it next time. So the humoral response is basically when a T helper cell will activate the B cell of the adaptive system. Okay, we know that B plasma cells are the ones now that release antibodies, and you can see here is an example of a B plasma cell releasing antibodies, and they travel through the bloodstream to the site of the infection and aid in destruction of the pathogen. We'll get to what antibodies specifically do at a later video, but basically B plasma cells are really, really important for that antibody production. The cell-mediated response is when the T helper cell decides to activate T cytotoxic cells, and that's usually if it's an intracellular pathogen, so like a virus. Okay, the T cytotoxic cell then either becomes again a memory cell, or it just becomes an activated T cytotoxic cell, and they're going to go and cause apoptosis in the cells that they go and infect. Okay, now we know from our last video that cells which are infected can also sort of start off this pathway using MHC1. Okay. So cell-mediated is when that T helper cell decides to go down and activate T cytotoxic cells. Now you'll see both the humoral and cell-mediated have these memory cells, and that allows us to, I guess, have immunological memory of a pathogen. So the next time we encounter it, we're able to produce a large amount of cytokines and antibodies and cells very, very quickly. And this allows us to have a much quicker and a greater response. This is sort of why you don't really get the same flu twice. You can actually have memory cells that are activated as soon as you come into contact with that again. So in review, there's two types of immunity in the adaptive system. You've got humoral and cellular response, or cell-mediated. And the humoral is one that involves those B cells, and then the cellular involves the T cells. And both the systems result in memory cells being activated. And that means we can fight off previously encountered pathogens, a much longer term immunity compared to our short term. So I hope this video helped you guys. Thanks.